The night was heavy on the colony, and the people gathered around the square with nervous hearts. They whispered in fear, their eyes fixed on the large cage in the center. Inside the cage, the alien beast shifted, its massive body hidden under shadows and flickering lights. No one had seen such a creature before, not in books, not in records, not in stories told by old travelers. Its eyes glowed faintly in the dark, like two burning embers, and its breath came in slow, heavy waves. Every time it exhaled, a strange mist leaked from its mouth, curling like smoke in the cold air. The colony guards stood with weapons ready, their hands shaking even though they tried to appear strong. The beast had been captured after days of hunting in the forest beyond the safe walls. Many hunters had been injured, some nearly killed. But at last, they managed to trap it with steel nets and shock spears. The leaders claimed that the beast was too dangerous to live. They told the people it carried death in its claws and blood in its teeth. They said it must be sacrificed before it destroyed them all. Children clung to their parents, staring with wide eyes. The adults whispered about the glowing veins they saw under its skin, veins that pulsed like liquid fire. Some swore they heard the beast speak in a language of growls. Others said it was only rage, nothing more. Fear spread like fire through the crowd, and yet deep within that fear there was also wonder. Among the people stood Daniel, a young worker with calloused hands and sharp eyes. He had no family close. By no high rank in the colony, no voice among the leaders, but he felt something stir in his chest as he looked at the creature. Where others saw a monster, he saw a prisoner. The beast was not lashing at the cage, not roaring in madness, not tearing at the bars. Instead, it crouched low, quiet, its glowing eyes watching the humans in silence. There was power in its stillness, but also something else, something Daniel could not name. The leaders stepped forward, their robes shining under the lamps. One of them raised a hand and spoke loudly so all could hear. "This beast is a threat to our survival," the leader declared. "It has tasted human blood, and it will taste more if we let it live. The sacrifice will be made at dawn to protect the colony." The crowd murmured, some nodding in agreement, others whispering doubts, but no one dared speak against the leaders. The beast gave a low growl, soft but deep, a sound that rolled like thunder under the earth. The guards tightened their grip on their weapons, stepping closer to the cage. Daniel's heart pounded, but not from fear, from curiosity. He felt the growl was not just anger. It was something else, like a warning, or maybe like pain. The thought clung to him, and he could not shake it around him. The people began to leave, parents pulling children away, merchants closing their stalls, guards taking shifts for the night watch. But Daniel stayed longer, his eyes locked with the beast's glowing stare. It was as if the beast looked back only at him, ignoring all others. For a moment, Daniel felt a strange connection, a thread of silence binding human and alien together. His breath caught, and he quickly turned away, but the feeling did not fade. That night, the colony was restless. Doors locked, windows shut, fires burning low. The people dreamed of glowing eyes and razor claws. They dreamed of cages breaking and screams in the dark. But Daniel did not sleep. He sat by the dim light in his small room, his mind filled with questions. Why did the beast stay silent in the cage when it could rage and strike? Why did its eyes not burn with hate, but with something deeper? Why did he feel pity when everyone else felt only fear? Outside, the forest whispered. Strange cries of alien birds echoed in the night. The wind carried scents unknown to Earth, thick and wild. And in the cage at the heart of the colony, the beast shifted once more. It lowered its head as if in sadness, as if it understood what fate awaited at dawn. The mist curled from its mouth again, faint and slow, and far away. Daniel sat awake, unable to turn his thoughts away. The colony believed the beast was a danger. The leaders believed sacrifice was the only answer. But Daniel began to wonder if the greatest danger was not the beast, but the choice they were about to make. Morning came slowly to the colony, the sky above the alien world glowing with strange colors. The suns were rising, two burning orbs painting the horizon with red and gold. Shadows stretched across the walls, and the air carried the smell of dust and iron. The people gathered again at the square, their faces pale with fear, but also with curiosity. Today was the day the sacrifice would be made. The beast lay silent in its cage, its glowing eyes following every movement of the crowd. The leaders stood, tall on the platform, their voices sharp and cold. They spoke of survival, of safety, of protecting the children from the unknown. Their words were strong, but their eyes betrayed unease. Even they feared what they had captured. The guards pushed closer to the cage, spears crackling with blue energy. One spark touched the bars, and the beast growled low, the sound rolling through the ground like an earthquake. The crowd gasped, some stepping back, others clutching their hands together as if in prayer. But Daniel stood still, his eyes fixed not on the leaders, but on the creature. Something was wrong. He felt it deep in his bones. The beast did not thrash. It did not strike. It did not show wild rage. It sat low, muscles tense, but its glowing eyes carried something far more human fear. Daniel's breath grew shallow as he watched, his mind fighting against the voices around him. Everyone said the beast must die, but his heart whispered a different truth. The leaders called for silence, their words echoing across the square. This creature is a curse upon our colony, the High Speaker declared. It has killed our hunters. It threatens our peace. It cannot be trusted. The sacrifice will honor the lost and protect the living. The people nodded, some cheering, others trembling, but none brave enough to disagree. None, except for the doubt burning inside Daniel. As the crowd dispersed, Daniel stayed behind, walking slowly near the cage. The guards shouted at him to step back, but curiosity pulled him forward. The beast turned its head, its glowing eyes locking with his once again. Daniel froze, his heart hammering in his chest. The beast did not roar. It did not lunge. It only watched him in silence. And in that silence, Daniel saw something strange. The beast's gaze was not filled with hate, but with a plea, a silent cry, begging to be understood. That night, Daniel could not rest. The colony slept under the red glow of the moons. But his mind was awake. He replayed the moment again and again, the look in the beast's eyes, the quiet strength in its stillness. His thoughts battled against the voice of the leaders, against the fear of the people. Was it truly a monster? Or had they captured something they did not understand? If the beast wanted blood, it could have killed when they first trapped it. But it had not. It had endured the pain of spears and nets. And still it had not struck to kill. Daniel left his room and walked through the empty streets. The torches burned low, shadows dancing on the walls. The colony felt different at night, the silence pressing heavy, broken only by the distant cries of alien creatures outside the walls. He passed the sleeping homes, the shuttered windows, the dark alleys. And at last he reached the square where the cage stood under the pale light of the moons. The guards had gone for their shift change, leaving the cage for only a few breaths of time. Daniel's heart pounded as he stepped closer. The beast lifted, its head, glowing eyes flashing faintly in the dark. Daniel trembled but did not turn away. Slowly, he reached into his bag and pulled out a small piece of dried bread, the only food he had saved. He raised his hand, his arm shaking, and whispered softly, "I don't think you are what they say you are." The beast gave a deep rumble, not of anger, but of caution. It rose slowly, muscles shifting under its skin, glowing veins pulsing with faint light. Daniel's breath caught, fear clawing at his chest, but he held his hand steady. The beast stepped closer to the bars, its eyes never leaving his. With careful movement, It lowered its head and sniffed at the bread. Then, with surprising gentleness, it opened its jaws and took the food. Its teeth brushed against the metal, but it made no attempt to harm him. Daniel's eyes widened, wonder crashing over his fear. The beast chewed slowly, watching him as it ate. For a moment, the world was silent. The colony around them faded away, and it was only Daniel and the beast. Two beings from different worlds, bound by a single act of trust. Daniel stepped back, his heart racing, his breath unsteady, but deep inside he felt something awaken, a truth no one else could see. A beast was not just a monster. It was something more, something alive, something that could understand. But the danger was clear. If anyone saw him, if the leaders found out, he would be punished as a traitor. Yet Daniel knew he could not turn away now. The doubt had grown too strong. The seed had taken root. He returned to his room, his thoughts burning like fire. The colony believed the sacrifice would save them. But Daniel began to fear a darker truth. Perhaps the sacrifice was not only a mistake, but a sin. And if the beast truly was not their enemy, then killing it would not protect the colony. It would doom them all. The night ended with Daniel staring at the ceiling, his eyes wide and unblinking. Outside, the beast lay in the cage, silent but awake, its glowing eyes fixed on the stars above. And though no words were spoken, both Daniel and the beast carried the same question in their hearts. What fate awaited them when dawn returned? The next evening arrived heavy with tension. The colony buzzed with whispers of the sacrifice that was set to happen soon. Shops closed early, families locked their doors, and guards doubled their patrols near the cage. Everyone wanted the beast gone, erased, destroyed before he could curse them further. But Daniel carried a secret in his heart, a memory from the night before, the moment when the beast had taken the food from his hand, not with rage, not with violence, but with patience. The image of its glowing eyes stayed with him all day, haunting his every step. He worked with the others, carried tools, followed orders. But inside his mind, one thought repeated over and over: what if the leaders were wrong? When night came, Daniel waited in silence, listening to the colony grow still. The streets emptied, the lanterns dimmed, and one by one the guards shifted into their posts. But Daniel did not sleep. Instead, he crept through the shadows, his feet soft against the ground. Every corner he turned, every door he passed, his heart pounded like drums in his ears. If he was caught, it would mean punishment, maybe even exile. Yet the pull inside him was stronger than his fear, the pull to see the beast again, to know if what he had felt was real. At last he reached the square. The cage loomed in the center, dark and massive, surrounded by the glow of flickering lamps. Two guards stood at the far end, speaking quietly, too far to notice him slipping. Through the shadows, Daniel crouched low and inched closer, his breath sharp in his throat. The beast lay inside, its massive body curled, eyes half shut but glowing faintly in the dark. It was awake, watching, always watching. The moment Daniel stepped into the open, the eyes lifted and locked onto his. A wave of fear rushed through him, but beneath it was something else, the strange thread of connection from before. Alive once more, Daniel pulled a piece of food from his bag, a scrap of cooked meat he had stolen from the kitchens. His hands shook as he held it out, the air between him and the cage heavy with silence. The beast rose slowly, muscles rippling under its skin, the glowing veins across its body pulsing. Brighter, it stepped forward, claws scraping the ground softly, each step sending a shiver up Daniel's spine. When it reached the bars, it lowered its head, nostrils flaring as it breathed in the scent of the food. The low growl came again, deep but controlled, not of fury, but of warning. Daniel whispered, his voice trembling, "I am not here to hurt you." He pushed the food closer. The beast opened its jaws, rows of sharp teeth glinting in the dim light. Daniel flinched, but did not pull back. The jaws closed carefully around the meat. Taking it with almost delicate care, the sound of its chewing filled the silence, steady and slow. Daniel exhaled a breath he didn't realize he was holding. His body trembling from head to toe, the beast lifted its head again, staring at him with those glowing eyes. There was no hatred there, no hunger for violence, only awareness, only thought, and in that moment Daniel was certain the beast understood. A chill passed through him, not from fear, but from realization. He was not just feeding an animal, he was speaking without words. The beast blinked slowly, a glowing light in its veins fading softer, calmer. Daniel dared to step closer, placing his hand lightly against the cold steel of the cage. The beast lowered its massive head until it rested near the same spot, a barrier between them, yet a bond forming through it. Daniel's hand trembled against the bars, and though he knew the danger, he did not move away. He whispered again, voice shaking but steady enough to carry meaning. "You are not what they think you are." The beast let out a soft rumble, almost like a sigh. Daniel's chest tightened, his doubts now sharper than ever. The leaders had said the beast carried death in its claws. The people whispered it was a monster born to kill. But Daniel had seen more in one quiet moment than all their fearful voices combined. He saw patience, intelligence, maybe even sorrow. It was not the face of a mindless beast. It was something more, something dangerous. Yes, but not evil. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed near the square. Daniel's blood turned cold. He pulled back into the shadows, crouching low, his heart hammering like thunder. 2 guards walked past, their lanterns swinging light across the square. The beast shifted, but did not roar, did not strike. It only sat silent, watching as the men passed. The guards muttered to each other, complaining about the long night and the coming sacrifice. Then they moved on, their light fading into the distance. Daniel remained frozen for a moment, barely breathing. When he finally looked back at the cage, the beast was still staring at him, silent and patient. Daniel knew then that he could not stop. He would come again and again, each night if he must. The bond was forming, fragile but real. The colony would never understand. The leaders would never accept it. But Daniel's doubt had grown into conviction. The beast did not deserve death. It deserved a chance. And though fear clawed at his heart, he felt a new strength rising, the strength of someone who had seen the truth and could no longer look away. That night, when he returned to his room, he lay awake for hours. He could still feel the beast's presence in his mind, still see its glowing eyes. Every whisper of wind outside sounded like its low growl. Every flicker of shadow reminded him of its glowing veins. Sleep came at last, but it was filled with restless dreams, dreams of cages breaking, of stars burning, of the beast standing not as enemy, but as ally. And when dawn came, Daniel knew one thing for certain. He was already walking a path he could never return from. The days passed, and the colony waited for the sacrifice. The leaders spread their words like fire, telling everyone that the beast was cursed. They promised safety once it was gone. They promised peace after its blood was spilled. The people nodded, fearful but obedient, for no one wished to speak against the council. But Daniel carried a secret heavier than stone, a secret that burned in his chest day and night. He had touched the edge of truth, and now he could not turn away. Each night, when the moons hung low and the guards grew tired, Daniel returned to the cage. Sometimes he brought bread, sometimes dried meat, sometimes only his voice. And each time, the beast waited in silence, its glowing eyes searching the shadows until he appeared. At first, it only ate what he offered, never moving closer than the bars. But as night stretched on, the creature began to change. It lowered its growls. It shifted its massive head closer to his hand. It blinked slowly when he spoke, as though it understood. The fear that had once wrapped itself around Daniel's heart now transformed into something else. A strange calm, a dangerous trust. The bond grew in silence, hidden under the noses of the colony. By day, Daniel was a worker, faceless in the crowd. By night, he was something more, an outlaw, a traitor in the eyes of the leaders. Yet he could not stop. He saw more in the beast than anyone else dared to see. He saw not only strength, but sorrow, not only danger, but restraint. Sometimes he swore he could hear whispers in its low rumbles, not words, but meaning, as though the beast was trying to speak through sound and silence alike. One evening, the sky turned dark with storms. Lightning cracking across the alien heavens, rain poured heavy, soaking the ground and flooding the square. Most of the colony hid indoors, but Daniel braved the storm. Slipping through the streets like a shadow, when he reached the cage, he found the beast drenched, its glowing veins pulsing brighter under the rain. It lifted its head slowly, droplets running down its scaled skin, and when Daniel approached, the beast pressed closer to the bars than ever before. With trembling hands, he raised a strip of food, but the beast ignored it. Instead, it lowered its head until its glowing eyes were level with his. The rumble it gave was soft, almost like a question. Daniel placed his hand against the wet steel. The beast leaned in, pressing its great forehead against the same spot for the Njumwiye. First time, Daniel felt its warmth through the cold metal. His breath caught, his chest tightened, and he whispered, "You are not my enemy." Thunder shook the colony. Lightning split the sky, but in that moment, Daniel felt something larger than both, a bond not made of chains or fear, but of trust, fragile yet unbroken. The storm passed, but the danger of his secret grew. One night, as he left the cage, he heard a voice from the shadows. "Daniel." He spun around, his heart freezing. A young guard stepped forward, suspicion burning in his eyes. "I saw you," the guard hissed. "You feed the beast." Daniel's breath faltered, his mind racing for an answer. But before he could speak, the guard shook his head and stepped back into the dark. "Be careful, Daniel," he whispered, "for if the leaders see, you will not live to regret it." Then he vanished, leaving Daniel shaken. The secret was no longer his alone. The following nights were heavy with fear. Daniel looked over his shoulder with every step, listened for footsteps in the shadows, but still he returned to the cage. Drawn by something stronger than fear, the beast greeted him with low rumbles, waiting as if it knew he would come. And each time he left, the thought of discovery clawed deeper at his soul. Yet he could not abandon it, not now, not when the bond had grown so real. One night, Daniel whispered the question that had haunted him for days. "Why do they fear you so much?" The beast gave a sound low and strange, a growl that rolled like a broken song. Daniel's eyes widened, for in that sound he felt something beyond rage. It was not violence, but memory, not hunger, but grief, as though the beast carried wounds far older than the colony itself. For the first time, Daniel wondered if it had lost something, if it too had been hunted, caged, and judged by those who did not understand. But the danger of discovery drew closer. Whispers began to spread through the colony. Some claimed the beast was restless at night. Others swore they saw figures moving near the cage. The leaders ordered tighter watch, more guards, harsher warnings. Yet Daniel could not stay away, his secret bond pulling him back again and again. Each visit grew riskier, each night heavier with suspense. The line between safety and ruin grew thinner with every step he took. Still, he knew one truth: the colony believed the beast to be only destruction. But Daniel had seen a different face, and if that truth was to survive, then he would have to risk everything. For the bond was no longer only a secret, it was a promise, silent but unbreakable, a promise that when the day of sacrifice came, Daniel would not stand with the leaders, he would stand with the beast, no matter the cost. That night, When he finally closed his eyes, the dreams returned. Dreams of cages breaking, of glowing eyes watching him from the dark, dreams of fire in the sky and blood on the earth. But in every dream, he was never alone. The beast was always there, standing beside him, and when he awoke with sweat on his skin and fire in his heart, Daniel knew the bond was no longer secret to him alone. It was a bond written into fate itself, a path that could not be undone. The colony did not sleep easily. Every night the beast's presence lingered in their dreams. Some whispered of glowing eyes staring through the dark. Others swore they heard claws scraping against stone. Fear was the blood that flowed through the streets, and the leaders fed it with every word they spoke. They promised the sacrifice would end the nightmare. They promised safety once the beast was gone. The people believed, because belief was easier than doubt. But Daniel carried doubt like fire in his chest. The bond he had built in silence now consumed his every thought. By day he worked, silent among the crowd, but his eyes always drifted toward the cage. By night he risked everything, bringing food, whispering words, waiting for the beast to lower its head to the bars. And in those quiet hours he felt more alive than ever. Yet with each visit the danger grew heavier. The line between secret and discovery thinned like glass under pressure. One evening, Daniel slipped through the square, as he had done so many times before. The moons were high, shadows long and deep. The guards nearby spoke lazily, their lanterns dim, their eyes heavy with boredom. Daniel knelt by the cage, his hand pressed against the bars, his other holding out food. The beast rumbled softly, its glowing veins dimmer, its movements calm. It took the food with slow patience, chewing as its eyes locked onto Daniel's. For a moment, Daniel felt peace. For a moment, he forgot the danger of the world outside the bars. Then a sound broke the silence. Footsteps. Not the heavy steps of guards, but quick, uncertain. The sound of someone too light for armor. Daniel spun around, his heart leaping to his throat. A young boy stood frozen at the edge of the square, eyes wide with fear. He had seen everything. The beast, the food, Daniel's hand against the bars. The boy's mouth opened, but no words came out, only a strangled gasp. Daniel whispered harshly, "Wait, don't tell anyone." But the boy turned and fled, his small feet slapping against the stone. The sound echoed like a scream through the night. Daniel's blood ran cold. He pressed his forehead to the bars, his breath shallow. The beast rumbled low, as if sensing the danger, as if it too knew what was about to unfold. Daniel whispered, "They'll come for you." The beast's glowing eyes stared back, unblinking, calm yet filled with something Daniel could not name. Fear clawed at his chest, but he forced himself to leave for the first time. He felt the weight of betrayal pressing down upon him, not from the beast, but from his own people. By morning, the whispers began, first quiet, spoken between families at their tables, then louder, passed from worker to worker, guard to guard. "Someone feeds the beast," they said. "Someone has betrayed the colony." The leaders summoned the people to the square, their voices sharp and angry. "The beast grows stronger at night," they declared. "It has been fed, cared for, protected. Among us hides a traitor." The crowd gasped, their fear twisting into anger. Mothers clutched children. Men muttered of punishment. Guards raised their weapons higher. Suspicion spread like poison. Eyes turned to neighbors, friends, even family. And Daniel stood among them, silent, his heart burning, his hands trembling. Every word from the leaders was a dagger pointed at his chest. But he kept his face still, hiding the truth behind clenched teeth. That night he returned once more, though his steps shook with fear. The guards doubled their patrol, the square brighter with torches. Still Daniel slipped through, knowing it could be the last time. The beast was waiting, its glowing eyes fixed on him. As he pressed food through the bars, his hand shook so violently he nearly dropped it. The beast did not rush. It did not growl. It simply leaned close, pressing its great head against the bars where Daniel's hand rested. Daniel whispered, his voice breaking, "They will know it is me." The beast rumbled, low and deep, a sound that seemed like understanding. It blinked slowly, the faint glow in its veins pulsing softer. For the first time, Daniel wondered if the beast trusted him as much as he trusted it. But fate did not grant him mercy. The sound of steel boots cut through the night. Voices rose, sharp and angry. Over there. Daniel froze, his body locking in terror. The guards rushed into the square, their torches blazing, their weapons raised. Daniel stumbled back from the cage, his face pale, his breath broken. The beast let out a deep roar, not of rage, but of warning. The ground shook with the force of it, sending the guards stumbling for a moment. Then they saw him, Daniel, standing too close. Food scattered at his feet, their faces twisted with fury. One guard shouted, "The traitor feeds the beast." The cry rang through the square like thunder. Hands seized him, dragging him to the ground. Torches burned around him, the crowd gathering, whispers turning into shouts. "Traitor! Enemy! Curse upon us all!" Daniel struggled, shouting back, "It's not what you think." But his voice was drowned by the fury of the people. The beast roared again, shaking the cage, the glowing veins in its body burning brighter than ever. The guards raised their spears, pressing them against the bars as sparks crackled. The air filled with the scent of ozone, the sound of fear, the weight of hate. The leaders stepped forward, their eyes sharp, their voices cold. "Daniel has betrayed us," they declared. "He has fed the beast, kept it alive, and put us all in danger. He will be judged, and the sacrifice will come at dawn." The crowd cheered in anger, though some faces held unease. Mothers pulled their children away from the sight, but the fire of hatred burned too bright in most eyes. Daniel was dragged to his knees before the leaders, his body bruised, his spirit heavy but unbroken. He shouted, voice raw, "You do not understand. The beast is not our enemy." But his words fell like stones into the void, unheard, unwanted. The leaders turned away, their verdict already decided. The beast pressed against the cage, its glowing eyes locked on Daniel. Its roar shook the night, once more filled with fury and sorrow. And though Daniel's body was bound, his spirit flared with fire. He had lost his secret, lost his safety, lost the trust of his people, but he had gained something stronger, a bond with the beast, a truth that no cage and no leader could ever break. And as the torches burned bright in the square, and the people shouted for his punishment, Daniel lifted his head, his eyes meeting the beast's, and in silence they shared one vow: they would not surrender to the fate chosen for them. The night after Daniel's capture was the heaviest the colony had ever known. The people gathered in silence, waiting for dawn, waiting for the sacrifice. The leaders stood tall, their voices sharp, their eyes cold. They promised the death of the beast would wash away the stain of betrayal. They promised the blood of the creature would bring safety to the walls. The crowd nodded, eager to believe, desperate to end their fear. Daniel sat bound in the shadows, his hands tied, his face bruised. Guards stood around him, their spears glowing with energy, but his eyes were fixed only on the cage. The beast crouched within, silent but alive, its glowing eyes locked on him. Even in chains, Daniel felt the bond unbroken. It was a thread that no rope, no verdict, no crowd could sever. The leaders raised their hands and declared the morning would bring the sacrifice. The people shouted their approval, but their voices were cut short by a sound that did not belong to the colony. A deep roar, not from the cage, but from beyond. The walls, the ground trembled, dust shaking loose from the roofs. The guards froze, the crowd gasped, fear shifting from the cage to the horizon. From the forest outside, the colony came shadows, moving fast, moving in silence. Then the alarm. Bells rang, sharp and urgent. Enemies! The guards cried. Figures burst through the outer gates, armored and armed, their bodies strange and alien. They were not beasts, but soldiers, creatures from another world. Their weapons glowed with deadly light, their voices harsh in a language no human knew. The colony erupted in chaos, screams filling the air. The guards raised their spears. The people ran for shelter. The leaders shouted orders, but the invaders moved like a storm, cutting through the defenses with ruthless precision. Daniel's heart pounded, fear and fire burning in his chest. The real danger had come, not from the caged beast, but from the ones who now poured through the gates. The colony walls shook as blasts struck, fire rising into the sky, the air filled with smoke, with the smell of burning, with the cries of the wounded, and still the beast sat in the cage, its glowing veins pulsing brighter. It growled low, a sound not of hunger but of fury. It pressed against the bars, muscles rippling, claws striking sparks against steel. It knew, Daniel realized, it knew this enemy. The guards turned their weapons on the attackers, but they were too few, too slow. The leaders shouted for more power, for more strength, but their voices shook. With fear, the people cowered in corners, praying to the stars, and in the center of it all, the cage rattled as the beast roared. The sound ripped through the chaos, so powerful it silenced both human and alien for a breath. Then the beast slammed its body against the bars. Again and again, the steel groaned, bent, cracked. The glowing veins along its body blazed like fire. And with one final roar, the cage shattered, metal tearing like paper. The crowd screamed, guards raised their spears, but the beast did not turn on them. It leapt past the humans, straight into the heart of the invading force. Its claws tore through armor. Its roar split the night. Alien soldiers fell beneath its fury, their glowing weapons shattering under its strength. The beast moved like a storm, each strike precise, each movement filled with rage. The ground shook beneath its power, sparks and fire lighting the air. The humans watched in disbelief, their so-called enemy now their shield. Daniel struggled against his ropes, shouting, "Do you see now? It is not our enemy." But his voice was drowned in the clash of battle. Still, some guards hesitated, lowering their spears, their eyes wide with shock. They saw the beast protect children hiding in corners. They saw it leap to intercept a blast before it struck the crowd. They saw it fight not against humans, but for them. The leaders shouted for the beast to be destroyed, their voices filled with fear more than authority. But the people no longer listened. Their eyes were on the truth before them. The beast fought with a fury that no human could match. Yet its rage was not blind. It was guided, controlled, focused on the invaders alone. An alien soldier raised a glowing spear, charging straight for the leaders. The beast roared and lunged, its claws tearing the weapon apart. It stood between the leaders and death, its glowing veins blazing. Like fire in the storm, the leaders fell silent, their words choking in their throats. For the first time they saw what Daniel had seen all along. The battle raged through the night. The beast fought until the ground was littered with broken weapons and fallen invaders. At last, silence fell, broken only by the crackle of fire and the cries of the wounded. The alien soldiers were gone, their bodies scattered, their attack broken. The colony stood, bloodied but alive, and in the center stood the beast, chest heaving, glowing eyes scanning the horizon. It did not attack the humans. It did not return to rage. It lowered its head slowly, as though in exhaustion, as though it had given all of itself. The people stared, their fear replaced with awe. Children peeked from behind their parents, not in terror, but in wonder. Guards lowered their weapons fully, no longer able to see the beast as only a monster, Daniel's ropes were cut in the chaos, and he stumbled forward. His eyes locked on the creature. He stood before it, trembling not with fear, but with reverence. The beast lifted its head, its glowing eyes meeting his, and in that gaze was no hatred, no hunger, only truth, the truth that the leaders had blinded. Themselves, too, the truth that Daniel had known from the first night. The leaders tried to speak, but their words faltered. The crowd no longer listened. The people whispered among themselves, voices filled with awe. "It saved us," they said. "The beast saved us." Daniel stepped closer, his hand reaching out, and for the first time, without bars between them, he touched the creature's great head. The beast closed its eyes, a low rumble of calm rising from its chest. And in that moment, the colony changed, for the beast was no longer a prisoner, no longer a sacrifice. It was their protector, their ally, their proof that not all monsters were enemies. Dawn rose slow over the broken square, painting ash and smoke with pale light. The people stood in silence, their eyes fixed on the beast, their breaths held like secrets. Children peered from behind their parents. The brave guards lowered their spears, and the leaders stared as if seeing a ghost. The beast stood tall but weary, its glowing veins dim, its sides rising and falling with heavy breath. Burn marks covered its skin, and a long cut bled slowly along its shoulder. It had saved them, and now it swayed like a mountain tired of holding. Back the sky, Daniel walked forward one step at a time, his hands open, his voice quiet. "Do you see now?" he said, his words soft, yet somehow larger than the square itself. No more cages, no more lies, no more fear. The beast watched him, eyes steady, a low calm sound in its chest. The people looked to the leaders looked to the people, and for a long moment no one spoke. Silence hung like a blade, sharp enough to cut the air. Then the high speaker found his voice, cold and thin. "It is wounded," he said. "It is weak. Strike now, before it turns on us." A ripple of fear moved through the crowd, but it stopped when Daniel lifted his hand. He shook his head once, slow and firm. "If you raise one spear," he said, "you raise it against the one who saved your children." The guards hesitated, their eyes flicking from Daniel to the leaders to the beast. One older guard lowered his spear first, his mouth set like stone. "We fight what attacked us," he said, "not what protected us." Others followed, spears dropping, shoulders easing, anger cooling into thought. The tide turned, not with shouts, but with quiet choices. One by one, the crowd breathed again. As if waking from a long bad dream, the beast swayed, and Daniel stepped closer. He could see pain in its eyes, but also patience, also trust. He reached out with an open palm, and the beast lowered its head, pressing lightly to his hand. A soft rumble passed through the ground, like a promise spoken without words. In that touch, the square changed, the colony changed. The story of this world changed, and the old fear crumbled like dust in the morning wind. But the sky did not share their peace. From far beyond the walls came a faint sound, a hum they felt wrong, the kind of sound that warns before it arrives. Somewhere in the forest, lights blinked where no lights should be. The air tasted like metal. The ground trembled like a heart before a shout. The people looked to the horizon, and the beast lifted its head. Listening hard, Daniel felt the change in it, a new weight in its body, a new fire in its eyes. It turned toward the forest with a low growl, a warning not to humans, but to the thing approaching. The high speaker tried to speak again, but his voice shook. "What is it?" he asked. "More of them." No one answered, because the answer walked out of the trees with cold light and silent feet. Thin machines shaped like spears, hovering on pale wings, their tips bright with deadly glow. The first drone hissed, its weapon spitting a beam across the square. A wall shattered, stone fell like rain. People screamed and ran. The beast roared, the sound reaching high into the air, a shield made of sound and rage. It moved. Before the beam could sweep the crowd, its body taking the strike meant for them. Light burned across its side, and it stumbled, but did not fall. Daniel grabbed a fallen shield and stood in front of a group of children, his body shaking, but his feet holding firm. The sky answered with more drones, a dark cloud of cold light. Guards fired back, but their shots were weak against the moving swarm. The leaders shouted orders, but their voices were only noise now. In the center of chaos, the beast stood steady, bleeding, burning, but unbroken. It leapt and tore one drone in half, caught another, and slammed it into the ground. Yet more came, a stream without end, like rain that will not stop. Daniel looked up through smoke and fear, and something strange happened. The beast turned its gaze to him, and for a breath the world narrowed to a single line between their eyes. Images flickered inside Daniel's mind. Not words, but pictures. Not sound, but feeling. He saw dark ships in a night sky. He saw a symbol burned on metal. He saw a door under the earth. A round door with spiral marks, the same marks that glowed. Faintly on the beast's veins, he gasped, and the beast stepped toward the north wall, as if saying, "Follow." "Open the north gate," Daniel shouted, his voice cracking but loud. The guard stared at him, then looked at the beast. Then at the swarming drones. The older guard nodded once and ran, his hands fast on the old levers. With a groan, the north gate slid open, revealing a stretch of ground and the dark trees beyond. The beast limped through, Daniel right behind. It a handful of guards and workers following. Above them the drones gave chase. Falling like knives, sharp and bright, they ran into the forest, leaves glowing with strange sap, air thick with living scent. The beast guided them, crashing through brush. Turning where the ground dipped, it moved like it remembered. Like all this had been a path long before the colony ever came. At last they reached a hill of black stone. Half buried, smooth as glass, cold as night, a ring of spirals circled a sealed door, the same pattern that glowed along the beast's veins. The drone screamed closer, but the beast pressed its forehead to the door, and the spirals woke with light. The stone shifted, the round gate rolled aside, revealing a chamber of dim glow and deep hum. Daniel led the children and the wounded inside. The guards followed with quick eyes and faster hands. The beast entered last and turned to face the door. Standing like a wall between them and the sky, beams struck the stone as the drones arrived. But the chamber held, the hum growing stronger. Daniel looked around with wide eyes and simple fear. "Where are we?" he whispered, though the chamber itself seemed to answer. Screens woke like eyes. Lines of light flowed across the walls. A map of stars flickered above them. Many crossed, with a red mark. In the center of the chamber stood a pillar of glass, filled with soft blue glow. The beast lowered its head toward the pillar, and the glow brightened. Daniel felt the hum move through his bones, a deep, steady rhythm, like a heartbeat older than time. He understood very little, and yet he understood enough. "This is not a lair," he said, his voice low. "It is a lighthouse, a warning tower, a shield station, a place that calls help or builds it." He did not know how he knew, only that the truth sat clear in his chest. The beast turned its glowing eyes to him, and he felt the answer inside his mind. Not words, but a single shape, a circle around. A home, a wall of light, a promise to stand and hold. The drones hammered the door, cracks running across the stone like ice. The pillar waited, the maps shimmered. The choice stood naked between fear and courage. Daniel looked to the guards, to the children, to the wounded, to the beast. "If we power this," he said, "shield will rise. The drones will break, the colony will live. But the cost will be our fuel, our stores, our lights, our heat, maybe all of it." The older guard set his jaw. The children watched with round eyes. The beast did not move. A hum filled the chamber like breath before a leap. From the doorway came the high speaker, face pale, robes torn, eyes wild. He had followed with a clutch of frightened aides, his voice thin with pride and fear. "Stand aside," he snapped. "We control this now." "No," Daniel said. Not loud, but final. "This is not about control. This is about choice. The beast is the key, not a weapon, not a trophy." The high speaker lifted a hand as if to strike, but his arm fell when the door shuddered again. Stone broke, dust fell. A beam of light cut the air like a blade. Sparks rained across the floor. Children cried out. A guard pulled them close. Daniel moved to the pillar and placed his hand against the glass. The beast stepped forward and laid its massive head beside his hand. The glow rose, the hum deepened, the maps flared with light. Energy rushed through the chamber like a river waking from ice. Outside, a dome of pale light blossomed over the forest and rolled toward the colony. It climbed the walls and wrapped the buildings in a shining veil. Drones struck the dome and shattered like glass in a storm. The air shook but held. The light sang but did not break. The attack slowed, then stilled, then died like wind at the end of a long night. Inside the chamber, the glow faded to a soft blue. The hum eased to a gentle pulse. The beast sagged and lowered itself to the floor. Exhausted but alive, Daniel leaned against the pillar, his breath rough, his eyes wet with quiet relief. The guards looked out through the cracked doorway and saw the safe dome shining over their home. The high speaker stared at the beast and then at Daniel, and for once he had no words. The choice had been made, and it had saved them. They carried the wounded back through the forest, under the sheltering light. The people came out of their homes, faces lifted, eyes full of awe and questions. Children ran to the edge of the dome and touched it, laughing through tears. Mothers held sleeping babies. Fathers dropped broken tools and just stood with open hands. The beast walked slowly into the square, its steps heavy, its head proud and tired. No one shouted, no one raised a spear. The old fear did not return. Daniel stood beside it, and the colony gathered around. The older guard spoke first, his voice simple and firm. "We live because of this creature, and because of the one who listened to it." He nodded to Daniel, then to the beast, then to the sky. "From this day we protect what protects us, and we learn, and we prepare." Night fell gentle under the new shield, stars bright and close. But the map in Daniel's mind did not let him rest. He saw again the red marks crossing distant stars. He felt the weight of more ships in the dark. The drones had been scouts, not the storm. Somewhere far away, a fleet turned its eyes toward this small bright dome. Time had been bought, not peace. Daniel sat beside the beast at the edge of the square, both of them quiet and awake. The beast looked at the sky, as if reading a book only it could see. Daniel spoke softly, more to the night than to himself. "We will build new walls of light," he said. "We will find the other towers. We will learn your songs. We will teach our hands to heal what we once tried to harm. And when the storm comes, we will stand." The beast answered with a low, warm sound that filled the ground like a heartbeat. Children fell asleep by their mothers' feet. The guards walked calm paths under the shield. The leaders stood apart, thinking. Long thoughts with quiet faces. Tomorrow would bring hard work and harder choices. The colony would change. Their stories would change. Their faith would change. But the path was clear, and it led forward, not back. Before dawn, Daniel rose and placed his palm lightly against the beast's warm brow. It closed its eyes and leaned into the touch, a mountain resting for a breath. "We are all eyes now," he whispered, not out of fear, but out of promise. The beast turned its gaze toward the forest, to the hills, to the horizon beyond the shield. In its eyes flickered a star map and a question older than any wall. How far will you go to keep what you love? Daniel looked to the people waking under the pale dome, to the children who would grow beneath its light. He looked to the broken cage, to the cracked stones, to the pillars that had seen blood and now would see hope. He lifted his chin, and his answer was simple as breath. "As far as the stars," he said, "and farther if we must." The beast's veins glowed softly. The shield sang like a distant sea, and the first light of morning touched the square with gold. The future waited beyond the walls, full of danger, full of wonder, and for the first time the colony stepped toward it without fear.